Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the Bug Bounty Field Manual Cliff Notes webinar. We have Adam Bacchus, the author of this illustrious manual, with us today. And I'm Luke Tucker. I'm Director of Content Strategy here at HackerOne. We can go to the next slide. So a few housekeeping items for us. We're going to be recording this for you guys, so it will be available online, and we'll shoot it out in an email along with the slides on SlideShare after. Please ask Adam questions, and the way you can do that is just going right to that question box in the control panel on the right, and we'll do some lively Q&A at the end. Now, obviously, this webinar is all about the Bug Bounty Field Manual. And what is the Bug Bounty Field Manual? Well, it's the definitive guide for how to plan, launch, and operate a successful bug bounty program. It's filled and jam-packed with a lot of awesome stuff. We've got 5 chapters with 25 subchapters, over 10,000 words, including tons of additional resources and reading material, and it clocks in at over 70 pages. You can get your free manual if you haven't already at hackerone.com/resources, Bug Bounty Field Manual. So without further ado, I'm really excited to introduce my friend and the author of the Bug Bounty Field Manual, Adam Bacchus. Take it away, Adam.
Hi, everybody. So here's our agenda for today. As you can see, it lines up pretty well with the chapters in the book. First, let's start with a brief introduction. All right, so who am I? My name's Adam. I've been a pen tester for about 4 years. After that, I was at Google for 4 years. Over there, I helped run the bug bounty program and also worked on vulnerability management. After that, I was at Snapchat for about a year, again, helping out with their bug bounty program and helping build out the internal security team. And I've been with HackerOne for almost a year, helping with a variety of things over here. As far as fun goes, I like playing video games. And as you can see from this picture, I enjoy playing with fire. All right, Chapter 1, Assessment, making sure you're ready. So before you even get started, you really need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. There are a lot of things you want to review. So first off, you want to look at the size of your organization. You also want to check out your existing security processes. Are you running automated vulnerability scans? Are you doing code reviews before you're launching new features, things like that? What does your existing security staff look like? Not only the number of security staff, but what skill sets you have. What does your attack surface look like? So internet-facing properties, websites, mobile apps, things like that, IoT, what have you. How do you handle externally sourced bugs today? So if somebody were to find a bug in one of your assets and they wanted to report it to you, what does that process look like right now? Do you have a process in place? Have you never done that before? And based on all of this information, you'll be able to tell if you're ready for a bug bounty program, wherein you actually provide monetary rewards for people that report security bugs to you from outside of your organization. Or maybe you want to start out with just a vulnerability disclosure program, which essentially is an avenue for people to report bugs to you, but there are no bounties, there is no money involved there. This talk focuses primarily on bug bounty programs. All right, so you've assessed yourself, you checked everything out, you think you're ready to start a bug bounty program. Now it's time to really you're initiating.
Hey, Adam, it seems like we got some issues with the audio with your mic.
Okay. Is this any better?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Cool. Should we reset on that last slide, or should we just keep going?
No, just keep rolling.
Okay, cool. All right, so in the preparation phase, the first thing you want to do is form your team. First off, you need a bug bounty leader. So what do we mean by that? Essentially, you want one single person who's the true owner and champion of your whole bug bounty initiative. This is the person that's going to help rally the troops, form the team, and make sure your bug bounty program is successful. If you don't have one single person who's really on the hook and responsible for this whole bug bounty program initiative, you might find that you'll end up playing hot potato and not making as much progress as you would like to. Of course, they can't do it by themselves. You need a bug bounty team to help support them. So they're going to help with operational activities and things like that. All right, so we talked a bit about operational activities, but what does that actually mean? So the best way to handle this, bug bounty programs can provide some interrupt-driven work. So you'll want to set up a weekly rotation so you're not getting interrupted all the time, and it's very clear who's taking care of your bug bounty program on a week-to-week basis. These duties include things like triaging reports. So when a hacker submits a bug report to you, actually reading the report, determining if the bug is reproducible, handling all communication and back and forth. This is also something that you can ask HackerOne for help. We have triage services, so we can take this off your plate. You want to file bugs internally. So when you do get valid bugs, looking at your internal bug tracking system or maybe leveraging a HackerOne integration to ensure you actually find an owner for the bug, tell them that it's an issue and make sure you can get that thing fixed. Dishing out bounties, so figuring out how much do I want to pay for these various bugs, when do I pay for these various bugs, making sure everyone's on the same page on bounty amounts and actually issuing an award to the hacker for reporting this bug to you. And of course, vulnerability management. So the story is not done when you get the bug and throw it over the fence into your bug tracking system and say, hey, please go fix this. You actually need to follow up and make sure you're remediating bugs in a timely fashion, helping people out if they have any questions on how to fix the bug, etc. Last but not least, you have strategic improvements to your program, and we'll talk about this a little bit more further on in the presentation. So, you're getting started, you're preparing, you need to look at scopes, bounties, and bugs. In terms of scope, the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, what do you have? What you got, right? Have you enumerated everything that you have? Are you sure you know everything that's out there? Of all of your scopes and potential attack surface, what do you actually want to be in scope, right? You don't have to throw everything into scope right away. That might actually be too much. Are there particular properties that you think are more ripe for testing from external hackers? What do you explicitly not want? What are the things that you don't want in scope? And reasons for this might be things like maybe web properties that look like they have your branding on them, but maybe you don't own or maintain them and can't authorize permission to test on it. Maybe it's something that came in via an acquisition and you haven't had a chance to do any security assessment yourself, things like that. Okay, so you've got a good grasp on scope. At this point, you need to figure out how are you going to price bounties? How are you going to pay for different bugs in different scopes? So to answer that question, again, you need to look at the scopes that you care about the most. There might be some scopes like your flagship product where you really, really care about bugs in it. It's got all of your sensitive data and functionality. And there might also be other lower value assets or lower value scopes that you don't care about, and you might not pay quite as much for issues in those scopes. Beyond the scopes, you also want to look at the bugs. What types of bugs do you care about the most? One example I like to give is user information disclosure. So let's say you've got Twitter, for example. On Twitter, a lot of people use their full name. They use it for publicity and so on. Some people, use it anonymously, but a lot of the time it's your real personality that's on Twitter. So if you have a user information disclosure bug where it leaks the first name and last name associated with an account, not a huge deal. It's definitely a bug, but not a huge deal. Now, take that same user information disclosure bug and look at something like Pornhub. On a website like that, people probably care quite a bit more about their privacy, and so the bug might be worth more in that scenario. So not even across organizations, but even in your organization across your different scopes, think about the different bugs and the impact they have based on the nature of the scope. So in terms of how you communicate this, you can have a bounty table. We recommend using severity. We use CVSS 3.0 for calculating severity. So again, critical, high, medium, low, and paying out based on the severity or the impact. You can see some generic examples here of different types of bugs that might fall into different severities. Again, though, it's always best to have specific examples for your scopes or the types of bugs that you care about the most. What's critical, what's high, what's medium, and what is low specifically to you. If you can't decide, fortunately, HackerOne has this pretty awesome feature in the platform called Bounty Statistics. Now, what this does, it actually suggests bounty amounts based on the severity. So here in this example, you can see for severity medium, we're recommending $150 as the median bounty amount that we see based on data on our platform. If you want a more competitive bounty to encourage hackers to participate in your program, you can go with $600. Or the top bounty, if you want to be hyper competitive, is $1,500 in this scenario. All right, so we're thinking about scopes, we're thinking about bugs, we're thinking about bounties, but where do you actually put all of this information? How do you communicate this to the hackers that are participating in your bug bounty program? All of this information should live on what's called your security page. Some people like to call this the rules of engagement or program policy. Whatever you call it, it's essentially the front door for any hacker that wants to participate in your bug bounty program. This is the very first thing that any hacker is going to look at before they start testing. Now, why would you want a security page? In addition to what we talked about before, you really want to steer hackers towards the scope and vulnerabilities that you care most about. So you can highlight this in terms of here are the high sensitive scopes that we really want you to focus on. here are the scopes we don't care about quite so much, or we proactively do not want you to test on. And again, with that bounty table, you can use money to kind of point hackers at the areas you want to see the most effort in. It also sets clear expectations around bounty pricing and timelines. The last thing you want to happen is a hacker spends all weekend looking for a bug, they find remote code execution, they're expecting, I don't know, $10,000 for it, but due to your budgetary constraints, you're only paying $1,000 for that type of bug at this time. If you can set that expectation up front about how much money a hacker can expect based on the type of issue, that'll result in less miscommunications moving forward. Additionally, you want to talk about timelines. So one of the biggest things for hackers is how long is it going to take for you as an organization or company to respond to my report? How long will it take for me to get my bounty? And how long will it take for you to fix bugs? If you can upfront set expectations around your normal timelines for all of those processes, it'll make it a lot easier for hackers to have their expectations set appropriately. Overall, this is going to result in a lot more trust and a lot more participation from top hackers. Having a really rock-solid security page shows that you know what you're doing, you've thought about this stuff, and you really want to communicate to hackers what you're willing to do in terms of timelines, bounty prices, and all that other good stuff. All right, so what do you actually type up and throw on this program page? We go into great detail in the Bug Bounty Field Manual, but at a high level, you want your program rules. So for example, no phishing, right? You probably don't want someone to try to break into your office, Mission Impossible style, dropping in on a wire and like stealing laptops and running out the door. You probably don't want that as part of your bug bounty program. Other things like how you handle duplicate issues. If you have multiple similar issues with the same root cause, do you pay for all of them? Do you pay for just the original issue? How do you go about doing that? What is your scope and what is your award or bounty structure, as we talked about before? And what are your SLAs or your common times for response, bounty payout, and fixing of issues? All right. So you're prepared, you've got your ducks in a row, you're pretty much ready to rock. Now you want to make sure you're championing internally and you've got all of your key stakeholders figured out and you've got them on board. So in terms of your cast and crew, first off, you want to start with your security team and yourself. If you and your security team are not truly bought into this idea, it's going to be really, really hard to sell other people on it. Beyond just the immediate bug bounty team that's going to be working on this initiative, you also want to talk to other teams like whoever's working on detection and response, whoever's managing your IDS and IPS, to make sure when all of this hacking activity occurs, they're not surprised by it. In terms of engineering, developers, you want to make sure they're on board, particularly if you're starting with 1 or 2 scopes. You want to talk to engineering and make sure the people responsible for those scopes and the people that are probably ultimately going to be fixing the new flow of bugs coming in from your program are ready for this. They want to know about it, they want to have the bandwidth available and have their plates cleaned so they have room to actually take in these bugs and fix them in a timely manner. When it comes to finance, you probably don't need to interact too much, and again, this will depend largely on your organization. But obviously, you're going to need a budget to pay for your bounties. Fortunately, HackerOne makes payments to hackers super easy, but you'll still want to talk to them about invoicing and prepaying for your bounty pool that you can pay bounties out of. Again, with legal, you probably won't need a ton of interaction here, but you do want them to be aware of this program, right? You want them to be bought in. They might be like, whoa, you're going to let random hackers from the internet hack on our systems? What's that all about, right? So you might have to explain to them why this is actually a good idea, how it can be done safely, and so on and so forth. Additionally, you'll want to make sure your legal team has a chance to review the terms and conditions when you sign up on HackerOne. And again, with PR and comms, similar story. You want to make sure they're aware of this initiative and how this can actually be a positive benefit for your company's PR. A lot of people start with a private program, an invite-only program they don't talk about, and then they ramp up to a more publicly facing program. And especially when you get to that point, you want to actually demonstrate that you're willing to work with the security community and receive bugs. This can result in really positive PR. We've seen this with things, for example, like the Department of Defense that we've worked with. All right, you've championed internally. Everybody's on board. You're prepared. You're ready to go. Put on your seatbelts. It's time for launch. Go, go, go. Wait. No, wait. Actually, hold on 1 second. Before you hit that big red button, there are a few things to consider. So as I touched on previously, you want to start with a private program. Again, In bug bounties, there's a concept of a public program where anybody in the world can submit. You publicly state that you have a bounty program. Or there's the notion of a private invite-only program where you actually just launch it very quietly with 1 to 2 scopes just to get started, and maybe 3 to 5 hackers, right? The reason you want to do this is you want to start very, very small so you can see what the volume of reports looks like. You can make sure your team is ready to handle these incoming reports. You have enough bandwidth to fix the issues that are flowing in, and you can scale this up over time. All right, congrats, you've launched. Now what? Well, you better brace yourself because bugs are definitely going to come. When you first launch your program, it's going to be time to start triaging. And again, you can lean on HackerOne. We have a full team of triage analysts that can help do frontline triage and review reports and only escalate the actual qualified bugs to you. But if you're triaging yourself, you want to make sure you're ready for this. You've got people on deck for the initial spike of reports that are going to come in when you launch your program. Invariably, you're going to need to flex and iterate. If you don't want to end up in a situation like this where you're begging for help, just be aware that there are some risks that can occur, and you just have to be ready for those bumps and bruises and flow with it as you can. Things are going to happen, right? Like a hacker is going to be upset about a bounty amount. Maybe somebody finds a bug in a scope that you didn't know existed. Maybe someone from your security team goes out sick. Maybe there's a critical bug, and the only developer that knows how to fix it is out on vacation, right? A lot of these things are going to happen. It's totally normal. Don't worry about it. Just make sure if any mistakes occur that you're learning from those mistakes and you're actively accepting feedback from both your hackers and key internal stakeholders to improve your program over time. Finally, when things are moving smoothly, it's time to pump it up and turn up the volume. So you can either do this by adding more scope over time or adding more hackers if you want additional reports on the existing scopes that you have right now. All right, so now we're into the post-bounty era. Your program's running pretty smoothly. Where do we go from here? You want to scale your program and you want to ramp up over time, but it's really important to keep it under control, right? If you scale too quickly, you can get burned. So in terms of tips on how to do that, you want to consider what types of bugs do you want. So you're looking at the data that's flowing in, you're seeing the types of bugs you're getting. Are you getting the right types of bugs? Are you getting enough remote code execution? Are you getting SQL injection? Or are you getting a lot of low severity bugs? Based on that, you might want to update your program policy. Maybe you want to update your bounty amounts and put more money behind those high-level issues like RCE and SQL injection that you really care about. Additionally, you want to consider if you can handle the increased load. So before you add more things to scope, before you invite more hackers to your program, look at your current bandwidth. Are you burning out? Are you suffering from not being able to triage the amount of reports that are coming in? Or maybe you're handling triage really well, or you've outsourced triage to HackerOne, but maybe it's taking a really long time for developers to fix bugs. You want to take a look at all of these issues and make sure everything's running smoothly before you turn up the volume. Now, in terms of how you can actually take it to the next level, you can run promotions with bigger bounties. I've seen companies do things like, say, for this month, the top 3 most interesting bugs will get 2x multiplier or 3x multiplier. I've also seen things like live hackathons. So HackerOne has hosted live hacking events called H1415 and H1702, both in San Francisco and Las Vegas. We've had companies like Airbnb, Shopify, and Snapchat actually come to our office or come to a suite in Vegas, and we invite our top hackers from across the world to fly in. And the cool thing about these events is hackers get to hack the companies, submit bugs like they normally would, and get their bugs triaged and get bounties paid out on the spot. Beyond that, the real true value that comes out of these events is building relationships between hackers and the companies. This isn't just a relationship for a day. You know, it's not like we just go do this and then we forget about each other and we all go our separate ways. This is a relationship for a lifetime. So a lot of the companies that have participated in these events have seen a lot more engagement with their hackers over time. All right, so coming back to vulnerability management, as you scale, so will your pain points, but fortunately, you can get ahead of this if you're proactive. When it comes to vulnerability management pro tips for squashing bugs, one common pain point I hear about quite often, and I've had from my own experience, is finding an owner. A lot of the time, you'll get a bug, it flows in, you're like, wow, this is an awesome bug, You try to figure out who's responsible for it. You look at the feature that's affected. Maybe you see who submitted the most code diffs for that feature, and you reach out to someone. You're like, hey, it looks like you own this feature, I think. Can you help with fixing this bug? And maybe that person's like, oh, I'm sorry, man. I changed teams. I don't work on that feature anymore. And so it can be a struggle, right? It can be a struggle convincing someone, hey, you are the person who's responsible for this. You need to fix this. So figuring out those processes early is really good. And again, this will vary widely depending on your organization. You'll want to automate as much as possible. So earlier we talked about SLAs for remediation. So let's say you advertise to hackers, maybe it takes me a month to fix a high severity bug or whatever your timeline might be. When you have bugs that you file internally, you don't want to go and ping all of these bugs manually every week to say, hey, how is this going? You might want to actually automate some of these pings. So maybe you see something like, hey, we filed this high severity bug 2 weeks ago. There's been no activity since it's been assigned to you. Just want to check in and see if you need any help or if you need a better understanding of how to fix the issue. So you can automate pings like that. And that'll save your team some time and effort as you scale and your volume of bugs increase. Invariably, you're going to end up having to do some manual effort as well, right? Those automated pings might get ignored or thrown into someone's trash via an automated filter. So you might have to reach out. You might have to call somebody. You might have to walk up to their desk and say, hey, looks like this bug is still present. We're coming up on our SLA for getting this fixed. Just want to double check and see what's going on. So when you do have to do those manual reach outs or invest manual effort into vulnerability management, you want to prioritize that based on severity. So only do those manual reach outs for your critical bugs and maybe your high severity bugs. Also, you need to sell it, right? If you're a developer and you've got your day-to-day work and security team rocks up and is like, hey, you need to drop everything you're working on and fix this critical bug right now. If you put yourself in their shoes, the first question you're going to ask is, why? I'm super busy. I've got a release coming out next week. Why should I drop everything for this bug? As much as you can, you'll want hackers to submit exploitation information, like how easily exploitable it is and what is the impact in the report itself. If that's not immediately clear in the report, you might need to embellish a little bit on that and help sell it to your developer, whoever's responsible for fixing the bug, why they should take time out of their day to prioritize this bug fix. All right, so let's not forget your friendly hacker, right? Throughout all of this, it's very easy to get caught up in your internal efforts to ensuring your bugs are getting fixed. But don't forget, a friendly hacker has reported this issue to you. And while they are probably reporting it for some monetary incentive, a lot of hackers also just truly want to see the security of your service improve. So don't be afraid to give them updates. If it looks like you're coming up on your SLA, you're not going to be able to fix it in time, don't be afraid to automate pings to the hacker saying, hey, sorry, it looks like we're coming up on SLA. It might take us longer than we expected to fix this issue, or even provide manual updates so they know what's going on. The other interesting aspect of this to not forget are, beyond your friendly hacker who is nice enough to report this bug to you, there are also not so friendly criminals out there, right? Especially if you have an internet-facing property. If a friendly hacker outside of your organization was smart enough to find this, this means a not-so-friendly criminal was also probably able to find this as well. This can also tie back into why it's worth the effort in convincing people to fix bugs by reminding them that it was found by an external entity to your organization, and although one person was nice enough to report it to you, it's possible other people out there know about this bug and could be exploiting it right now. All right, so it's time to stop and smell the roses, or the bites, or, well, your delicious data. So in addition to playing whack-a-mole and finding individual bugs through your bug bounty program and ensuring they get fixed, it's really great to do that, but the true value that you'll derive from your bug bounty program is finding root causes. So you want to look at your data and see what you're getting over time. You can look in your HackerOne dashboard, or you can use the HackerOne API to pull out some of this data and see things like, hey, we've noticed over the past year, we've had 80% more cross-site scripting bugs in this one particular subdomain than anything else in our program. Why is that? Go talk to the developers. Maybe they need some training on secure development. Maybe it's something as simple as you have a library that could do auto-escaping and they just didn't know existed, or they're not using it. In addition to that, you can also use this data to improve your bug bounty program itself. So we talked about this a little bit before, but in terms of what bugs are being found, where are they being found? Are you finding lots and lots of bugs in one property and you're finding literally no bugs, or maybe only a handful of bugs in another property that's super high value to you? Based on that data, you can update your bounty amounts accordingly, or you can run promotions and live hacking events like we talked about before to promote more researcher effort in the areas that you care about the most. Diplomacy. Why can't we be friends? Well, as we all know, this is the internet. Disagreements do occur. In a perfect world, in our lovely imaginary world, where every single report is just perfectly written, severities are always accurate, hackers always assign the right severity to every bug that they submit to you, and bounties are always the perfect amount. Hackers are super happy with the amount that you've given to them for their report. Now, in reality, disagreements definitely happen, right? So there are situations where a hacker might think a bug is more severe than it actually is, or maybe a hacker is upset about the bounty amount, and try as you may to proactively stem the risk of this happening by describing this very clearly in your security page, it's just going to happen. And when it does happen, especially after you've been triaging lots and lots of reports and you've been spending a lot of effort on your bug bounty program, it's easy to get burnt out and frustrated and snap on a hacker. It's super important to remember that tact and patience are always required, and especially with hackers that maybe don't have as much experience, being able to provide positive feedback and remembering everything that you say is essentially representing your company. So you want to keep cool, and remember that tact and patience are your two best friends. All right, so on to the fun stuff. Celebrating your milestones. Cake, 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 cake. So this is a cake that Riot Games received. It was congratulations on hitting 1 million in bounties. So that was one tasty way to celebrate. And in terms of other ideas, you don't want your bug bounty program to turn into this like boring, dreary factory where you clock in, you triage reports, you file bugs, you clock out, and that's it, day in, day out. You actually want to celebrate all of your success. You can do this in a variety of ways, such as writing blog posts on the metrics for your program, thanking the hackers for all of their efforts in helping you improve the security of your organization. You can also do things internally facing, like congratulating the most improved teams. So let's say you start your bug bounty program and you have one particular area or one team where it's just, man, security bug after security bug after security bug. You're just getting crushed in that area. And you go and you sit down with their team, you look at their software development lifecycle, you recommend some libraries, you do some training, and they really just get their stuff together and they improve. They improve a ton and they invest a lot of effort in improving security as a result of your bug bounty program. You want to congratulate them for that. Don't just make them do all this work and not thank them. And even beyond that, looking even closer to home, have dinner with your bug bounty team, right? Bug bounty team. Small typo there. Sorry about that. But essentially, for everybody that's doing all of this hard work and putting this elbow grease in to helping ensure your bug bounty program is running smoothly, you want to celebrate with them as well, whether it's dinner or drinks or a team outing or whatever it might be. Make sure you're treating your team right and thanking them for all of their hard work and effort. All right, so to recap, again, looking at the chapters, first you want to assess yourself, look at your organization, see if you're ready for a bug bounty program, or maybe you want to start with just vulnerability disclosure in a lower pressure way without bounties and money playing into everything. You want to prepare yourself, so you want to form your bug bounty team, assign your bug bounty lead, make sure you've championed internally in terms of talking to all of the relevant stakeholders that need to be on board with this initiative and that they're ready for it to happen. And then when you launch, again, start small, just a couple of scopes, few hackers, get your bumps and bruises, flex and iterate, take that feedback, improve your program, improve your processes over time. And then in the post-bounty era, you just want to scale up. You want to look at your data, you want to add more hackers, add more scopes, and eventually potentially go public with your program. All right, so if you're watching this webinar, hopefully you've already checked out the Bug Bounty Field Manual. If you haven't, highly recommend going and giving that a skim. There are a lot of resources in the appendix. One thing we're releasing today is a detailed project plan that lines up with every chapter in the book. So this is more or less a simple spreadsheet that has a bunch of action items, and you can flesh out the owners, due dates, things like that, to actually figure out how, on a day-to-day basis, you can plan, launch, and operate your bug bounty program. All right, so at that point, are there any questions? We'll go to the webinar for that.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. That was jam-packed, man. I know I'm obviously familiar with the field manual, and I even learned some stuff, I think, after you went through that. So just a reminder for our attendees, make sure you, if you have any questions, just go to that question box and type those in. I definitely have a few, Adam, so I'm gonna monopolize the time here and just kick it off. We were chatting earlier a little bit, and I was like, well, I would love to get a story from your past, either at Google or Snapchat, that kind of reflects one of the key points that you're talking through in the field manual, maybe a lessons learned or a good report. Anything that stands out from your time at Google or Snapchat?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Google, I used to work on the vulnerability management team, and coming back to those slides, one of the most important things was trying to find an owner and just convincing someone that they need to spend time and fix the bug. So again, as much as you can automate there, it can help a ton. I actually wrote a small Chrome extension where it helped automate emailing somebody about a particular bug with canned text saying like, hey, it looks like you haven't touched this bug for X days. So figuring out those own small tricks that you can do internally, depending on your organization and your bug tracking system, to ensure vulnerability management is moving along smoothly is something that I definitely recommend.
Cool, cool. Now, we talk about kind of keeping our hackers happy, right? If you were to identify the top 2 things that you consistently hear from the hacker community, of what's the most important things that they're looking for in a bug bounty program?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things is just responsiveness. So put yourself in the shoes of a hacker. You spend all weekend, or maybe even all week, just hacking, finding all of these awesome bugs and submitting reports to a bug bounty program. And a couple days go by, no response. Week goes by, no response. 2 weeks go by, whoa, like what's going on here? So if you look at it from the hacker's perspective, they spend a lot of time and effort and energy to help you improve your security. So it's really, really important to make sure you're responding in a timely fashion, which is why we talk about setting SLAs for first response, publicly stating what those SLAs are, and attempting to commit to them. So that's definitely one of the big ones. Another one is just expectation setting in general, especially around bounty amounts and other things like time to fix, time to bounty, things like that. So having a crystal clear security page, so expectations are set appropriately so you don't have miscommunications between hackers participating in your program. That is also something that I think is incredibly important to developing a good relationship with your hackers.
Awesome. Now, I know one of the questions we get a lot in just conversations with customers and prospects at HackerOne is like, how do I actually maximize the utility of the features through HackerOne? Like, I kind of get the principle, but maybe is there an example of a company that has just completely, dominated and done well in leveraging either the API or other aspects of the platform?
Yeah, so if there was one that I would call out, it would probably be Riot Games. They've done a lot of really cool stuff with the API and the internal dashboard that they've built. If you look up David Rook, R-O-O-K, over at Riot Games, who helps run their program on HackerOne, he has a lot of awesome talks on YouTube. So I'd recommend checking those out to learn some tips on how to run a bug bounty program and some of the cool stuff they're doing with HackerOne.
Yeah, and I believe we actually linked to that in Chapter 5, right around look for the cake image, and you'll see an awesome link, or just go to the appendix, and we have a link out by chapter, all the awesome stuff that we referenced there. I'm just going to keep rolling with questions. If we got any on the line from either Eric or Gene or Herm, anybody that's listening, and make sure you throw your questions in the question box. I got a few more for you, Adam. We'll keep you chatting. So. Right. What about examples of companies that maybe they've evolved their bug bounty program? They've gone from, kind of the early days, and we talk about this plan, launch, and iterate, right? They're definitely in that post-bounty era. And maybe what are some of those strategies, either recent ones or things that stood out, that companies are doing to kind of juice their bounty? The bounty is getting those right bugs, right? You talked about making sure you're getting the right bugs from your hacker-powered security community.
Yeah, I'd probably call out companies like Uber, Twitter, and GitHub. I know in the field manual we talk about GitHub, and we link to a promotion they did to promote their bug bounty program and get more bugs flowing in. Another thing to look at is the security page of these various companies. So when you first start out, you want to keep your security page pretty simple, but over time, as you get more feedback and you learn about scopes that you care about and bugs that you care about versus scopes and bugs you don't care about quite as much, your security page will evolve over time. And if you look at the security page of a company like Uber or Twitter, you'll see it's pretty in-depth. Uber also has like the treasure map, and they talk about different scopes that they care about and what types of issues to look for. So I think those are really great examples to look at for inspiration.
Awesome. Uh, let's maybe talk budgets just for a brief second. I know it's a big topic. There's such a wide range, and a lot of times it does depend. But when we're talking about this, the smallest companies to maybe the GitHubs, and we hear the Twitters and Ubers, and everybody's like, well, I'm not them. But if you're kind of in that lower, you're not the Twitters and Ubers, which I'd say is most of our listeners. For a company that's there, kind of what's the range are they looking at? Like going back to some of the elements of the field manual, like where do they kind of start, and how do you assemble that budget, and what dollar amounts are we looking at?
Yeah, budget is a huge question, and honestly, we could probably have a webinar just on that topic in terms of how to calculate what your budget should be. But yeah, there's definitely sometimes an impression of like, oh man, like I don't have that much money, I can't start a bug bounty program. There are a couple of things to remember. One, remember you don't always have to start with a bug bounty program. You could start with just a vulnerability disclosure program. It's always great to have an avenue for receiving bugs from external researchers, even if there isn't money involved. Now, when it comes to budgeting, you could do things like a pilot, like a time box thing, where you maybe just do a trial with HackerOne for a short period of time with a more defined budget. You can also start small, right? Like you could have like maybe $15,000 over a period of 3 months or so. The thing with that is you always want to be super crystal clear with hackers on expectation setting around bounties. So even if you start with much smaller bounty amounts, that's totally fine. You just need to be aware it will change the level of engagement you get from different types of hackers. And you want to make sure they aren't expecting a $5,000 bounty and then you give them a $100 bounty, because obviously you might have some miscommunication there.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we got a few questions. Actually, got one from Gene here. So how do you go about selecting the best hackers for a private program? Is it industry-specific work, hacker rating? Great question, one we get often too. So how do you go about selecting the best hackers for a private program?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an algorithm that can automatically invite hackers based on things like reputation. So for those that don't know, reputation essentially takes two things into that calculation. There's signal and impact. Signal for every hacker is essentially how many valid versus invalid reports am I submitting. If I submit 100 reports and 99 of them are just totally awesome, great bugs, then cool, my signal is really great. Inversely, if I submit 100 reports and 99 of them are just not valid issues and only one of them was good, my signal is going to be pretty poor. Impact, on the other hand, is the quality of each individual report. So am I submitting 10 bugs and all 10 of them are just bone-crushing, remote code execution, SQL injection, things like that? Or am I submitting 10 bugs and they're all best practice, like, oh man, you need to update OpenSSL, things like that. So signal and impact combine to form reputation, which is a numerical value. And when it comes to inviting hackers, you will either want to invite based on that, on reputation, or you can also, with some of our more advanced offerings, we can help with skill matching. So let's say your primary scope is a mobile app, we can look for mobile hackers. If your primary scope is IoT, we can look for IoT and hardware hackers. Basically, whatever skill set you need for the scopes that you have.
It actually blends well perfectly into our next question. And a lot of the stuff that you mentioned too, we have with our Hacker Success Index on, and a lot of great stuff in the blog. I think we referenced that in the manual. But the next question from Jack is, a lot of hackers in H1 programs focus on web apps. Does HackerOne have a number of hackers that are focusing on protocols?
Yeah, I would say we have a large variety of hackers that focus on a wide variety of areas, protocols, hardware, and mobile, the whole 9 yards. If you are running a program right now and you need help finding hackers, definitely let us know. And we can, if we don't have the hackers that you need participating in your program, we can talk about ways to incentivize more hackers to look at your program, and even go out and search for hackers ourselves if you're not finding them.
Sweet. Well, Adam, really appreciate you taking the time with us today. We'll, if we got any other questions that come in real quick, otherwise, really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, my friend, and really, guys, we're going to have the recording on the web sent out. We'll have it on the website, and read through the field manual. I know, Adam, we have in there a email that they can shoot questions off to, bbfm@hackerone.com, or suggestions, and Adam's contact information is right here. Hit him up on the Twitters at SushiHack, or right there, shoot him an email. I know, Adam, I'm speaking for you here, Adam, but I know you'll be happy to answer any questions from our listeners.
Yep, definitely happy to answer any questions, and also any feedback you guys have on the manual. Is there anything we're missing? Anything you'd like to see more of? It'd be awesome to get that feedback so we can continue to improve on the manual and create additional supporting assets.
Yeah, which are coming down the pipe. You know, through the remainder of this year and beyond, we will be adding those kind of next level deals. Like we'll be kind of doing a deep dive on triage. You know, HackerOne offers an incredible triage service, and we provide that choice for our customers, not forcing that option on you. We're allowing them to choose that, and that's something that we're really stoked to be able to talk about. And you've already kind of teed up that post, Adam. So be on the lookout for that.
Cool.
Right on. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. Be on the lookout for the email from us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.